neutral region in the country.
I thank my honourable friend, and absolutely I congratulate her local council and the mayor candidate, Leanne Byrne, on the fantastic work that they're doing. And I'm really proud that in my own local authority of Cardiff, Cardiff Council are doing some really groundbreaking work on a clean air plan, tackling air pollution levels, and in fact have just been awarded 21 million from the Welsh Government, the Labour Welsh Government, to invest in practical measures such as retrofitting, taxi migration and transport initiatives. Really groundbreaking stuff which is absolutely needed. But, you know, climate change, we know, is no longer a theory. It's a reality beating at our door, and the recent floods across our country have shown it simply isn't happening in far-flung places and to other people. It's happening right here. And we have a moral, social and ethical obligation to act to meet the environmental challenges of today and for the generations who will then precede us, to leave behind a healthier, more sustainable environment for tomorrow. But this long-awaited Environment Bill is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to strengthen our environmental standards here at home, but to modernise waste and recycling strategies, to show global leadership at a time when it's so sorely needed, and a time of COP26 when we can actually show the world what we're doing. There are some welcome measures within the bill. However, I'm afraid this really fails to show that promised gold standard as stipulated by the former Environment Secretary, the Secretary of State's predecessor. And I'm not suggesting that any of this is easy. It's not easy to change the way we do things, to meet the climate challenge. But I am suggesting that we do have an absolute imperative to take urgent and radical action to build a long-term sustainable environment and economy that will safeguard our planet for future generations. But not only that, that offers opportunities for people, for our communities and for our businesses. And this does not have to be an either-or scenario. It doesn't have to be, and I don't know how many years I have been making speeches talking about either the environment or the economy. It doesn't have to be either or, it can actually be both. But today I want to focus on one of the key elements in this bill, the waste and resource efficiency, unsustainable packaging as it is at the moment. The UK has been using and wasting resources at unsustainable levels, and we are far, far behind the recycling rates of many of our European neighbours. There is a rising imperative for government, for business and consumers to think and act radically when it comes to plastics and for packaging, waste and recycling. In the last parliamentary term, I presented my own extended producer responsibility bill on packaging. And UK government figures have been shown to drastically underestimate how much plastic packaging waste Britain generates. A study by Eunomia, the waste experts, estimate that just 31% of waste is currently recycled. And where does that waste go? Much of it exported and shipped overseas and dumped into our precious oceans, washed up on the pristine shores of the Arctic and Antarctic. Whilst the bill sets targets on waste reduction and resource efficiency, there is more of a focus on end-of-life solutions rather than tackling the type of packaging, the use and the reuse of plastic packaging. This disproportionately continues to put the burden of waste collection and costs on local authorities. Around my bill in the last term, I set up a coalition of waste industry experts and local authorities, all of whom do not believe this bill adequately deals with the reform of waste as it should. We desperately need that radical reform of the system if it's going to work across the whole of the country. Producers need to take responsibility from the packaging they produce to the clean-up at the end of the life cycle. And this is the government's opportunity to be ambitious, show the UK to be a world leader. So it would be a great shame if it doesn't take this opportunity, and it isn't in the bill as it currently stands. The current system has failed to get to grips with export waste, and I'm not confident at all that this bill in any way toughens our stance on the restrictions of exporting waste. Even the most well-intentioned of producers who ship plastic waste overseas to be recycled and treated correctly lose control and ultimately lose sight of whether that waste was appropriately disposed of. The Secretary of State, in his opening remarks, says he has toughened this. But frankly, I can't see that in the bill. We've gone from prohibit and restrict to a regulation. Can I ask the Secretary of State and the Minister, what does that mean? What does this regulation look like? And how does it adequately meet those needs? Because it doesn't, as I see it. Yes, I'll give way.
So whether she'll be supporting or opposing this bill in the lobbies this evening?
Well, I thank the honourable member. I am absolutely opposed to a lot of the things in this bill because it doesn't speak to what our industry, what our producers need. So I'll be looking very carefully and making that decision at the end of the debate. But we must be building on our recycling industry here in the UK. And the answer to that problem cannot simply be that the government will tackle the problem by causing more materials to be sent for landfill or to incinerate. While end-of-life solutions are important, the ultimate objective must be to decrease the volume of plastics, single-use plastics used, improve design and recyclability, and see large-scale investment and infrastructure capacity here in the UK, not shipping things off overseas. And we must address the core reason why so much plastic is shipped overseas, with 356 million tonnes of plastic waste just in 2018. In England, council have been restricted financially to invest in recycling facilities, and so much of the growth in the waste disposal sector has been achieved through exporting waste. And in many cases, a failed austerity agenda has created that growing dependence on export markets. I'm fortunate that in Wales and in the Welsh Government, we've been ambitious. We've introduced those hard recycling targets and invested in recycling. But for this to work, then we need fundamental reform across the whole of the UK. And I want the UK to take, and I want this UK government to take innovative steps to change that and radically change that, please. Finally, I want to really briefly touch on the Environmental Office for Environmental Protection and the role it's intended to play. Where is its independence in holding a government to account, and what consequences will there be when the government fails to meet targets? A regulator with fewer powers than the European Commission and toothless. How can we hope to meet the challenge of a climate emergency with a bill, with a weak operator such as this and regulators such as this, and which lacks ambition? The bill lacks ambition, it lacks legally binding targets, and fails at every level. If you want people to take government and parliament seriously, then please wake up and toughen this bill up. Thank you.
Owen Paterson.
Thank you.